Talking Sex podcast, where we talk about sex because it's a conversation that does matter. Today we're continuing our conversation with Noni and Davey Yates about their story, and in particular we're hearing about their story of disclosure and discovery. And then next episode we're going to learn about a better way to go about discovery and disclosure. So let's listen into their conversation now. Well, Noni and Dave, thank you so much for what you've shared so far. We're going to think a little bit now about disclosure, because I know that you've done a lot of work, the two of you, in that. That's been an ongoing process. But I know, Noni, as well, you've actually done some particular studies on top of your counselling work that you've done. So I'm thrilled that you're going to be able to really talk us through that. But before you sort of talk us through what's a really healthy process, I'd love for you to tell us what your story was. How did disclosure happen? Because I know it happened over years. So can you tell us your story of disclosures?
Well, yeah, I think I should.
We should talk discovery.
Well, I was going to say, I didn't want to correct you, but yeah, there was no disclosure until recently. There was discovery.
Okay, so explain that to us.
Discovery's been found out.
Okay.
And when that happens, disclosure is when someone sits back, gets everything sorted out, and tells the whole truth. Rarely does that ever happen. I don't think it happens ever. Normally, someone is discovered, an act, a sign, whatever. And at that point, you're in damage control.
Yes.
Filled with fear, shame, and you just want to minimise what you see the damage, but also the discomfort for yourself.
Yeah.
And I repeated that several times, and Noni can give you what it was like for her. So it was, oh crap, yep. And is it real? Yep. And your mind's going. So there's this constant bargaining with yourself, or negotiation of what I can say, how little can I get away with.
Yes. Yes.
So discovery really is invariably saying it's just the minimum that you need to in that time.
Yeah. So tell us your story then with how did that happen through your time? So the discovery is not the disclosures. That's really helpful to explain the difference there.
And then it's just answering questions. But you either lie, no, it was only this once, oh, accidental, or
I could probably talk more for this.
yeah, you better.
But tell us your story first.
I know it's like for.
No, but I'm actually.
It's really helpful, Dave, to hear it from you. What's going on in you?
Yeah, for the betrayal, for the unfaithful, they're just going, I just want this to stop.
So, Ali, discovery is generally when something's been discovered. Could be an inappropriate text message. Could be in our case, I had some instinct. I had, like gut. They said that our gut is our second brain.
Yes.
And yet we ignore it so often.
Yes.
We ignore what our gut's telling me. I'm very different now. I will listen to my gut. I'll trust my gut always.
Yes. I've heard a number of people talk about they can walk back into their family home and know whether their husband has watched pornography because they just know it in their gut. So that's really interesting you say that. Yeah.
So first discovery for me was within 6 months of us being married, and there was one particular work colleague that my gut, it just didn't sit right with me. And Dave and I we had like a long distance relationship until we got married, like for 12, 18 months or something. And I would question like this person, like how come, and like little things like, oh, how come you're on your way home from soccer that way? And
yes.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And there was always there was an excuse. There was something. Then I remember, I realized that in early days of being married, I just had this feeling, and I realized I didn't trust Dave. And for me, our relationship had to be built on trust. It was like
Yes.
the hardest thing for me to do was actually step into life with someone else and really fully trust them with my life. Fully trust them. So I was vulnerable with Dave before we got married, shared all that with him. He knew how big it was. And then on this kind of feeling that I had to really, express to Dave was, one morning before he was going to work, I was just in tears. My heart was so heavy. I was so distressed. And he said to me, what's wrong? And I said, Dave, I'm really, really struggling. I've got a real problem. I don't trust you. And he just looked me, we were this far away.
I know, Melanie, we're on the front porch.
Anyway, and I looked at him and I said, do I have any reason not to trust you? And he looked straight into my eyes and he just said, no, I place you above all others. And I'm like, that's a bit of a weird thing to say. But, he reassured me that I had no reason not to mistrust him. So I'm thinking, okay, look, silly me. I'm just insecure. I'm just, this is on me. And again, those stories.
Yes.
Telling yourself. So I'm gaslighting myself.
Yes.
Because I'm ignoring my gut. But he's also that straight out lie.
Yeah.
He's like, no, of course not. I'm like, oh, okay. So then within a matter of weeks, like 4 weeks, he turned up from a work trip and he had this horrendous mark on his neck. And I was just like, I thought I was going to die. I thought, and I went straight into a flight response, and I just thought, I've got to get out of here. I can't. This is everything's a sham. It's all a sham. And that was Dave begged me to stay, and he said, look, I need help. I want Christian counselling. And because he wasn't a Christian, we got married.
Yeah.
I was a believer. I always wanted Dave to have that freedom of, and so that was the day that he actually gave his life to the Lord. And I thought, oh, my prayer's been answered. This is all good. This is all great. It's never going to happen again. It was a mistake. But little did I know that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
And so all went on, and there was other behaviours that were, because when someone's keeping secrets or someone has any kind of addictive behaviour, there's other behaviours that sort of go into hiding. And that's generally, like there's the 4 types of gaslighting that we talk about. And there's the straight out lie, which, believe it or not, is one of the easiest ones to overcome. Then there's the...
Sorry, when you say easiest ones to overcome, for who?
Well, to actually heal from is a straight out lie.
Okay.
Then you've got the reality manipulation. And the reality manipulation is when you've got someone that's twisting that whole twisting, you're not seeing that right. That's like the the bit of information that you've seen, but then it's like, no, that was wrong. That was meant for someone else. And you start feeling like you're going crazy. And then you've got scapegoating, like someone's been caught. And it's like, well, if you didn't do this, then I wouldn't have done that. The blame and everything.
Yes.
Then you've got coercion. So they're all behaviours that are incredibly, they are part and parcel of infidelity, pornography, betrayal.
Yes.
So they're all. So what I was experiencing was more of this kind of, didn't really have any evidence, but again, kind of like this walking on eggshells. And then so there was, as far as I knew, there was nothing concrete. And then there was another one where this is ages later. Dave was going to Amsterdam for work, and I had his car, and I had the kids in the car. We had 3 kids.
Yes.
Take soccer, and I got
my phone.
I had Dave's phone. I had his car. I had his work phone, and this text message came up saying, "Hey Dave, have a great trip. Behave." From this person I'd never had, kiss. And I'm like,
yes.
What? Now he's mid-flight. He's going to Amsterdam, and I'm just like completely fragmented. and I've still got to keep it together for these 3 kids.
Yes.
And all I want to do is kill him.
Yes.
You know, but again, I'm just like, who the hell is this? What's going on? So he landed in Amsterdam. I'd found out where he was staying. His mother was also very sick at the time. So I called the hotel and I said, as soon as my husband gets in, he must call home.
Yes.
And so, because he immediately thought, no, mum's, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And he called and I just said, who's, and he's like, oh, no, oh, and then all this, and I said, who is it? And through that, I just like, so this is when phones were attached to the wall as well.
Yes,
yes. The kids that are in there, I'm trying to protect them. I've stretched the cord as far as I could so that I could just give it to him. And I just said, look, I'm out of here. Again, I go into that flight response. I'm not staying around. I'm going. And he just said, no, please don't go. And I said, you have no right to ask anything of me right now. And so that was discovery number 2.
Yes.
And then we again, just this, it was all minimized. It was all, oh, you know, who's this person? Oh, look, we just, you know, I just needed someone to talk to.
Yeah.
I'm like, talk to me.
Yes.
I need to talk to, you know, like who is.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, that was as much as I got of that.
And I go into management and damage control mode.
Yes.
Which end up being pretty good at.
Yes.
I'm afraid.
Yes.
Rather than honest mode.
So then I'm only making decisions with the limited amount of information I've got. So again, I'm being controlled by the information that's given to me.
Yes.
So anyway, it's another, you know, forgive and move on. It was a mistake, not going to happen. And then we moved into where we are now. So we've been here for 9 years.
Oh, you get right.
No, it was here. It was here. I moved in here. And lots of stuff happens while Dave's away.
Yes.
I think these things come to light. And I had to log on to we had a big Mac desktop, and I had to log on to something. And for whatever reason, his emails were on there. And I just saw this email come up from this person. I'm like, but it was historical. It was like from 2009, 2010. And I'm just like, so then I just followed this, because if you're a betrayed spouse, you're a really good detective. You go into hypervigilance, and if you're not getting the information, you go looking for it.
Yes, yes.
So I found this email trail of over 18 months of this woman who, and there was nothing sexual or anything in it, but it was almost like he had this fantasy schoolboy pen pally kind of thing going on. And I'm just like, I actually feel sorry for you. I'm horrified, because it was total romanticizing, because I'm just thinking, you're not that person that you're making yourself out to be.
Yes.
It's like grandiose, this enigma kind of thing. And this woman was a musician in the States, and it was just like, again, that wanting to impress, and the egocentric, you know, feel good stuff. And it just kind of stopped. But it actually went this pen pally kind of back and forth writing, and it was all very I was just like, oh my goodness, who the hell are you? Because that's not the person that we live with and that we know.
So there's no in reality. Yeah.
Confronting Dave with that again, you know, and I just said to him, the only reason that your things aren't actually out on the footpath is because this happened, you know, like this is history. This is like 5-6 years ago or something.
Yes. And
I could see that it had kind of stopped. But again, there were stories that came up with that. Oh, you know, it was just this, it was just that. But then there was not once was it like, let's get to the baseline of truth.
Yes.
What is underneath all of this?
Let's get to the bottom of why the heck are you doing this? It's not normal.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And was there an element, Dave, in your not telling the truth of being terrified that you will lose Noni if it all comes out?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Always.
So if you can keep control of it and just reveal the tiny bits, she might stay.
She'll stay. And, you know, there were times, I know, looking at Nate in the eye going, it's on the tip of my mouth. I'm going to say it. I'm just, and I haven't, you know, which
Yes.
I wouldn't even know, I wouldn't have even known where to start.
Yes, yes.
And
Well,
going, oh,
yeah.
walk and just let that moment go and just keep moving, keep moving.
Yeah, yeah. And you hadn't done your work to even
No.
know yourself deeply anyway. So
No.
Noni, carry on with your story.
Yeah, so that was 9 years ago. And then, because, you know, when I talk about these other underlying behaviours, when someone has a secret life, or, you know, Dr. Omar Minwala talks about the secret sexual basement, but
Okay.
and that's where, you know, it's like you're living on top of your life as we know it, church, family, work, relationships is all on top, but it's like having a meth lab down that's built down in the basement, and the poison contaminates the whole house. So when someone has like this secret sexual basement, and they, you know, they go down into it. Now that could be the pornography, it could be a bit of a dabbling in this, or it's a secret.
Yes, hookups. Yes, anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Sexting, texting. There's so much stuff out there now.
Yeah.
And they come up. They're never the same.
Yeah.
And each time they go down, they change more and more and more and more. It gets darker and darker and darker and darker. They think that everything's fine.
Yeah.
Every single family member knows that something's not right.
Yes.
So what our family lived with was a cycle of volatility, the people pleasing Mr. Nice Guy. Everyone sees the nice guy out there, but then there'd be like a reactivity at home, you know, the slightest kind of perceived criticism, it's like an explosive reaction.
Yes.
So anyway, fast forward to like finally in 2018, I drew my line.
Yeah.
You know, so over the years, though, I will say Dave was diagnosed with depression in the first year that we were married, and medicated for 25 years with depression. Ultimately, back in 2017, 2019, when I'm just thinking these behaviours are not normal. They're not.
It's so volatile.
It's so, and it is like living with a Jekyll and a Hyde.
Yeah.
A psychiatrist diagnosed him with bipolar 2 and medicated him. So all the ways we're thinking, oh, okay, so there's a pathology here. There's a pathology.
Yes.
There's something wrong. Little did we know that there's roots that have gone down so deep that are creating this, what appears on the outside, like what we were getting was this, it was really awful to live with. It was really, yeah. So I won't say a monster because it was not like that all the time.
Yeah.
But so therefore, I just got to the point where whether there's a mental diagnosis or a mental health issue or not, I've done everything I can.
Yes.
My white flag's in the sand, and our relationship is done. So that's August 2018. And yeah, so I just said that's it. And I knew nothing. The only the things I knew about were what I just shared with you then. I knew nothing else.
Yes.
And Dave, at that point in time, because I said, you know, our relationship is ended, it's like I'm not, because I realized I was in an emotionally abusive relationship.
Yes.
A lot of coercive control. And I just knew that I didn't know what my future was going to look like, but I knew that I was not going to stay in the place that I was at.
Yeah.
That was the gift. That was the gift. Dave felt blindsided, interestingly enough, whereas we had pastoral care, counselling, prayer ministry, deliverance, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
What do you call it? Going around the mountain.
We just went around, we were spinning our wheels for decades. And what it needed was the truth.
Yes.
It needed to know what was really going on. And so that was the gift. Yeah. I think, because I put my hand on my heart and go, I've given this everything I've got, and it's yeah.
Yeah. And And then, so then truth starts to come out.
No,
Well, you'd think so.
no.
You'd think so.
Yeah, no, well, you'd think so. But so after that separation, Dave actually doubled down in doing all sorts of, I mean, read it all in our book. It's all there.
Yes.
But we got to a place where because it was, I mean, I had enlisted a lawyer. I really was definite about this separation, and Dave doubled down on a lot of other controlling issues. And my solicitor suggested that we see a woman who was a mediator to actually help us sort out our finances and the whole separation. She's a separation specialist.
Yes.
And I think she's written a book called Separating Respectfully.
Yeah, she worked at the family law court.
Yeah. And so we had a session with her, and she said she called me in first, and she said, what's your best case scenario? And I said, best case scenario is that we sort everything out now legally, separate our finances, we do our own intense work on ourselves,
Yes.
Because if I'm thinking I'm not showing up right in a relationship, I want to make sure that I am doing I am taking on my role and my part very seriously.
You want to be healthy yourself, regardless of Dave, and you want Dave to be healthy regardless of you. Yeah.
Exactly. And then ultimately, that after when we've done our work and a period of time has gone, then we actually work at reuniting in a fully functional, healthy relationship. And in my mind, I'm thinking probably 2 years down the track, because and Dave, we left there, and Dave started.
Well, do you want to? What she said to me? And I.
So yes, she met with you, Noni, first, but then she met with you, did she, Dave?
And she says, well, yeah. And she says, well, what you having to get out of this, or what do you think? I said, well, I really think I'm here so you can help us separate and for Noni to leave this marriage. And that's and she said, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I really want to do whatever it takes to reunite. She said, well, what have I told you? That's possible, or that Noni harbours some of that as well. And my life went,
there is hope.
There is hope.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it, because I was like, this is what I want, but I really believe it's done. It's done, and I'm really just here to go through the motions.
And so in that, we she took us through, and like at that point in time, I think I've mentioned before, I was definitely checked out, and this was almost like, okay, so I'm gonna do this, and to show that I've done every single thing that I can possibly do, and the kids will know I've tried, and that's, and I can have peace with that. So she had us get to a point where she said to actually commit to the process of a possible reconciliation without being attached to the outcome. And that's what looked like. There was 5 points that we both agreed to. One was we separate our finances, we remain 100% monogamous. We Dave had to address one of our sons over something. We remain living separately, and we go back to see her in January. This was the beginning of December. So walked out thinking, yep, okay, I can tick all those boxes.
I've done the right thing. We can separate.
Tick the boxes. But then it was just like I had this real kind of conviction come over me in the next few days. It really kind of started really welling up in me, and I just thought, I can't just tick boxes, because that's not authentic to who I am. If I'm going to agree to this, I need to actually be all in. And I need, in my heart, I need to be committed to this process authentically, not just say I've done it. So, I took that on, and David had been doing some stuff with finances, and I had some questions, and also after we left that, the first thing Dave sent was some marriage counselling websites And I was like, whoa, ease up, Turbo. This was actually way down the track. We're meant to be getting all of these other 5 elements in place first. And anyway, so I met with Dave just to make sure we were on the same page with everything.
Yes.
And I questioned, and I said, look, are we on the same page with all of these areas? And when I sort of mentioned the monogamy, I said, like, and I broke it down into, have you spent one-on-one time with any women? And Dave got quite prickly.
Yeah.
And that kind of defensiveness reared up. And he said, oh, just, work people. And I said, who? And he said, you don't know them. And I said, and anyway, straight away, again,
Yes.
going,
Yes.
no, this doesn't feel right. So I did a little bit of digging again, and I found that he'd actually given a woman, I had no idea who she was, $1,000. And I'm just like, whoa.
Yes.
But in his mind, because we'd separated, it was his money, and like, all of the control and everything. And I just did not, it just really didn't sit well. And then when so I had to really come to Dave vulnerably, and I wrote this really heartfelt letter, and I basically said, I felt that with you not just being open with who you'd been spending time with, it didn't make me feel safe. I felt really uncomfortable. And so if I'm going to trust you with my heart again, if I'm ever going to, I need to know. And again, have you had one-on-one time with any women? And I'm like, what kind of Facebook contact? The whole lot.
Yes.
Very specific.
I was really, really specific. There was no grey areas. And I said, just tell me, because if I'm going to trust you with my heart again, I need to know. I need to know what's happening.
Yes.
And I was terrified of giving him this. I thought he'd be really angry, because the anger was always close to the surface.
Yes.
So there's a reason you wrote it rather than sent it to me, because you didn't want to get you maybe put it in writing.
I used to put lots in writing because I didn't want to be manipulated.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm too good at deflecting.
Very good at manipulation.
Yeah.
So if it's in black and white, then it's
you can finish saying what you want to say.
So rather than get angry, he actually looked at it, and he just put his head down quietly, and he gently folded it, and he just said, no, can I please answer this thoroughly later? And I really, and I went, yeah, you can. And my heart softened. It was almost like, for me, that was God just bringing me back to a place of tenderness. It was the first time I'd felt tenderness towards Dave in a long time, because I could see his gentleness, and I just thought, oh, okay, he's taking this.
Yeah, there was a glimmer of vulnerability in that response.
100%, yeah. It was almost like it was just a softening, like.
And I read Noni's words, and I went, this is the person I love.
Yes.
And I can see that I have been controlling. Absolutely. Okay. And she's pleading with me to not be controlling.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was an opportunity for Dave to bring forth truth. Did you do it?
Did you do it in part? In part, okay.
Again, measured out again. Measured.
And I went, this is it. And I started writing, going, and I had to keep editing. I was like, I can't do that. I think I'm this close. I'm this close. Just getting back, getting on track, and I can't.
Yes. So, if I tell it all, it'll blow it. So
I told part, not all. I just told the last few months. I minimised it.
And he did, and for me, there was no deal breakers. There was some questionable stuff there, no doubt. But again, the way he explained it, I'm like, oh, okay, he's pretty confused. He put a good spin on everything.
Yeah.
And then said, look, there's some things there. Can we please save it to talk through in couples counselling?
Yeah, to explore deeper. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And but in that was the woman's name that I'd seen that he'd given the money to. Now, he'd not admitted to giving money, but just that she was.
And you hadn't confronted me about it either.
No, of course I hadn't. No. So there was this, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay. And so she was a work colleague, and she was looking for some work. Anyway, again, it was all explained, but for me, I'm just like, oh, okay, just filing that away.
Yep.
But there was an amount of $1,000, which was really interesting. But anyway, but not saying that you'd given it to her. So anyway, had that, and then that was mid-December. So we were already beginning to talk about, maybe catching up, and David moved out of the house. And then Christmas Eve, he came down, and we were planning to have Christmas Day together. We had our eldest son, eldest daughter with us. And so he came down Christmas Eve, and we just had a normal, afternoon. And then I was preparing, and he'd left to go back to where he was staying. And I went up to my room, and I noticed that there was, I'd missed a call from Dave. He'd only left like 10, 15, 20 minutes before. So, there's a voicemail. So I listened to the voicemail, and it was a 5-minute pocket dial. He hadn't realised that he had called, and I could hear a woman's voice as well. And it was kind of like a pleading, and obviously he was telling her that she didn't get the job or something, but he had literally left from our place, and then there was this pocket dial, and I literally flipped. And I blew up his phone with, where are you? And left a message. I said, who are you with? Again, it was just that survival, that kind of terror that rose. And I was unable to function Christmas Eve. I literally had a cup of tea and just ended up in bed. And and of course, Dave got my messages, and then again tried to go into damage control, and because he had no idea that he'd called.
Yes.
And so then he pleaded and pleaded and pleaded, can I please come down? And anyway, the next morning I said, I'll meet you on the beach at 6 o'clock, and you can just tell me. And so I really hit him with what the hell's going on.
Yes.
So I said to him, if you want to spend Christmas Day with us, you go back and you tell our children why I was unable to function Christmas Eve.
Yes.
And that was probably the first time in the beginning of Dave actually telling the truth.
And being accountable for it. Yeah.
Yes.
Still not fully truthful.
No.
Yes.
It was the start. That was the start.
It was the start of it. Yeah. Well, that's the end of our conversation for today, but join us next time as we hear, particularly from Noni, but we hear about a better way to go about disclosure. Thanks again for listening, and please remember that talking sex matters and you matter too. Bye-bye.